and I am going to welcome our guests into the session. We are hosting the paths to building wealth and financial management. I was going to say wellness. I like to say financial wellness because it's so important to stay well and healthy with your finances. We've invited three powerhouse women to share their stories and wisdom about their relationship with money, how they help others handle their money, and how they've made life-changing decisions on the journeys they'll share with us today. So I'd like to welcome our guests to turn on their videos and step out of the green room. And we're going to have, thank you. I want to give a quick introduction to who we have today. So we have Eva Macias, who is a CEO financial expert for Eva Macias and Associates. And I want to give a huge shout out to Luisa Chavez, one of our Woman Up community former speakers at, I think it was Woman Up 2019. And she introduced us to Eva, and Eva is also the author of A Latina's Guide to Money. So welcome, Eva, and I will get to self-introductions just a minute, and then Jessica Simpson, who is a private wealth advisor from Envisage Wealth, and thank you to Sherry Chris from Realogy, who introduced us, and then last but not least, Christina Wise, CEO of Wealthy. She also wrote the book Falling for Money. She has a Wealthy podcast, and we know Christina Wise through our amazing Inman community. So I'm going to start with you, Jessica. If you could give us a little bit. Oh, no, I'm going to start with Eva. Excuse me. If you could give us a little bit of self-introduction, give us your background. Welcome, Eva.
Thank you so much. Yes, welcome, and thank you everybody for tuning in today and giving us your time. My name is Eva Macias, as mentioned, and I started in financial services 13 years ago when I was completely lost in my own financial journey. Along the way, I decided to woman up and take control of my finances and literally start paying attention to where my money was going. And I fell in love with it and created Eva Macias and Associates, which I never thought about owning my business until I was in the information about business. And I own Eva Macias and Associates, then fell in love with becoming an author to get the message out to everybody. And that's actually how I became an author, because I made it about others. So you can actually get my book, Eva Macias, A Latina's Guide to Money. And also because I hear a lot of women say I don't have time and I don't have money. So I created a course where the whole the financial course is all about you're worthy of having it all, because you are absolutely worthy. Just remember your all is different. And so that's how I fell in love with financial services. And that's how I got started, not knowing, but knowing that I know other women that are smarter than me that I know can help me through the process, and they did. And therefore I can stand here in front of you saying that I've authored a book, created some pretty awesome things with some pretty awesome women. So my background before this was actually, I was an escrow officer. So I know a lot of you, and I know the pain that you guys sometimes go through. So that was my background before that, 8 years prior to that. And so I realized in that place that I could still teach, or I could learn, I can teach others about money. And I fell in love with doing it in my own terms.
Well, you are speaking our language, and I cannot wait to dive into a little bit more of that story. So thank you, Eva. Jessica, will you give us a little bit of background about yourself?
Absolutely. So Jessica Simpson, thank you guys for having me today. I really appreciate it. I've been in the financial services industry for about 16 years now, which doesn't roll off the tongue easily, right? 16 years feels like a long, long time, but not a long time, as I'm sure many of you can relate to. But it really started at the ground up. I mean, went from being an assistant to doing some financial planning work to an associate advisor to a financial advisor, now private wealth advisor. And I've had great mentorship along the way. And I work with great clients. I know it's funny whenever you get accolades and people, I'm not the most gracious, I guess, at accepting the kudos for any of the accomplishments that I've achieved, but I really do just lean on, I work with great people. I've got a great team around me. And it's funny, it just kind of dawned on me from just a real estate perspective. You know, my mom sold real estate for years, my grandmother before her. So it's kind of funny that real estate topic, I guess, intertwined with the investment advice and the financial planning type of things. So anyway, I look forward to sharing a little bit with you guys today.
Welcome, Jessica. We love mentoring and we love to help our community praise each other and pray and accept the praise for themselves. So thank you, well, and we're happy to have you today. And Christina, please give us your background and why you and what you've been up to lately.
Well, yeah, I guess I would say I've had a few different careers in my life. My first career started in real estate sales and loved sales, and then was one of the first teams with Keller Williams back in the days, working directly under Gary to really learn how to build teams, run a business under the big brokerage, and spent a long time with Gary. Was one of his mentees actually out of a dozen of us that worked with him for a year. So as you can imagine, he really opened up my mind there. Then I left Keller and started my own brokerage, which was called Good Life Realty and Good Life Team, that became very, pretty well known nationally. I won the Inman Innovator Award. I was really known as a disruptor back in the day. And just, so that whole part of my life was real estate. I founded and started the Paperless Agent. Maybe many of you have heard of that. That was my baby before I sold it. And so deeply, deeply rooted in the industry. Now I'm a real estate investor and a money mastery educator. So what I really do now, after my own life story that I'll share with you here in a little bit, and pivoted out of the industry just from the sales and brokerage point, but really became passionate about, through my own near-death experience, through teaching people about money, especially women. I love women to gain this thing called female financial power, to own our confidence and our wisdom and our confidence and our ability with money, because we love it, we embrace it, we understand it, and we do it. And so money is a category that women tend to shy away from. We're great at making it. We're great at sales. We're great at brokerage. But when it comes to just getting good with the money stuff, it tends to be something that gets a little bit deflected. So I really help people, especially agents and those in the industry, because it's in my blood, really understand money so they can turn to real wealth and get out of the commission to commission and paycheck to paycheck cycle that can be so prevalent in our industry, and really turn it into like financial savvy. So that's what I do now. I'm really an educator in the money space.
Awesome. And money is not a dirty word, right? Let's
a great word.
That together.
So we can say it, money, 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 money. Let's just say it together.
And that's why we're here. We're here with these amazing experts. But before we get into some of their advice, I do want to start with your why. Like, why did you get into this line of work? And let's start with you, Jessica.
Yeah, it's kind of a funny story. This ends up being my introductory story to most of the people who I end up working with when I meet them, because it's a bit of a rabbit trail. So I went to college, a small liberal arts college here near Columbus, Denison University. I don't know if anybody would even know it, but I have an economics background and I always excelled in school. And so, of course, like any 20-year-old who had no idea what they wanted to do with the rest of their life, I actually thought I went to law school for a minute. And no offense to anyone here who has a legal background, it was not for me. I never quit a thing in my life. I played sports my whole life. It was always a rule. You start something, you finish it. And I went to my folks and I said, I can't do this. It's not for me. So I actually swung the pendulum very far back the other direction. And I coached softball at Ohio Dominican University here in town for a couple of years, which was fantastic. Loved the kids, loved the head coach. But I had to basically work 2 full-time jobs to make $25,000 a year. And I said, boy, this really isn't quite the financial windfall that I was hoping for. So funny enough, my aunt was working with a financial advisor here in town and said, hey, she's looking for someone to start part-time. And so I went down that avenue and it just clicked. It was like peanut butter and jelly. I was like, I get to coach people financially. It's just my economics background applies. It really fit like a glove, not to use too many sports metaphors, but it's just really something that I love doing. And that's how I approach it every day. I'm just here to give good guidance and listen to what people are trying to accomplish and give them solutions as to how to achieve that.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Lucky accidents, right? That's how many people started in real estate as well.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, we're so glad to hear from you today. Eva, what about you? What inspired you to start your own business and get into this line of work? You're muted, Eva, honey. Happens to the best of us.
I know. So a little bit about my background in how I got started. So I actually was an escrow officer, and I actually got a law internship as well, which I did not love. Gave that to my best friend. Then I started becoming an escrow officer, and I bought my house at 23, my first house. And then I bought my second one at 24. And everybody just kept telling me since I was in the business to buy real estate. But what I kept hearing my family tell me is you should invest in a 401k. Mind you, I have no idea what a 401k is. I don't even know how it works. My employer doesn't even offer it. And so in wanting to get information about a 401k, I started doing some homework, right? It wasn't a Google type of thing. It was you go to the bank, you kind of go there, you go to webinar or actual in-person webinars or seminars that we would have. And there was a statistic that really landed for me that said, most likely I would end up with the same retirement plan as my parents. Mind you, I'm the youngest of 8, and my parents they've never owned a new car. They've never owned a home. They don't have any financial guidance, but they don't have any debt either. And I asked my older sister, I said, hey, what do my parents have? Little did I know that my parents retired off of $1,100 combined income. My one car payment was $1,200. So I saw a huge disconnect in that moment and realized there's something like wrong here. My parents are good people. They've worked 40, 50 years. What's happening? And so the more I actually went through that rabbit hole that Jessica was talking about to want to find out more information for myself, little did I realize that I fell in love with an industry that to me felt that there was an opportunity, because in 2008, for a lot of, real estate people out there, I was experiencing a downturn in my own personal finances, $300,000 in debt, no guidance. I had all the luxury cars you can think of. And yet everything was belly up because I had no financial guidance. I had no idea that money was going to stop coming in at one point, and so from that point forward, I realized since my employer didn't offer a 401k, my parents didn't have this information at the time. I wasn't a mom, so I decided to go full force and commit. And I decided to go into the financial services arena. And that actually became my passion to opening up my business and then becoming an author. I never in my life said I wanted to own my own business. I never in my life had said I want to become an author. I fell in love with the journey of it and then realized that I can change so many lives, and I needed to get out of my own way because I was making it about me, and I needed to get out of my own way to be able to continue to spread the word, because there's a lot of women out there that had no knowledge. The way I look at it, I'm smart, but I didn't know any of this information. So for me, writing the book and creating the business, also, I was thinking about the daughter that I didn't have at the time. I'm a mom now, but I started thinking about what type of legacy do I want to leave behind for her or for him? And not just seeing dad do it, but also I'm the influence of my household. And so for me, it was really important to fall in love with the woman that I wanted to become and become her every step of the way. And I'm still embracing that even through the money story. So that's kind of how I started in financial services and writing a book and deciding to open up a business and, all these other things that we have going on.
That is a beautiful why. I mean, that if you see those memes like, is it Mrs., Mr.? I mean, Mrs. or Miss, and it's like doctor. It's me, CEO. Yes, that's me. So I'm
CEO. I'm all about that.
That's right. And I will say, in the real estate business, there is no 401k unless you create your own. And so that's really important to this community. So thank you. And Christina, I do want to, circle back to something you shared in your intro and background, and that was your experience and how I'm sure it's tied to your why. So I want to give you a chance to give us a little bit more in depth into what you were sharing in the beginning.
All right. Well, yeah, where it pivoted or changed was when I was pretty much, just I wouldn't say at the top of the industry, but I was pretty well known in the industry, especially within the Inman crowd and the associations, and speaking all over the country. But I was burning the candle at both ends for a long time without realizing it. And I actually did a keynote speech for the top associations. And, we had like Spencer Radkoff in the room for the speech that I was doing. And I did this beautiful keynote and I got a standing ovation. I'm thinking, oh my God, life is so great. I've made it. This is the most amazing thing. And at the time, I was actually one of the few females on these technology boards and working with Zillow and Realtor.com and Redfin as some advisors. And I was usually one of the few, if not the only women in the boardroom in some of these talks. Back in the day. But what happened is in 2013, early 2013, I just got really sick and nobody knew it was wrong and we couldn't figure it out. And so I disappeared off the map. I was really, I was at the very top and just, kind of household name in a way. And then all of a sudden I disappeared. And so it was a year-long journey of fighting for my life. And it was very dark and very hard. And as you can imagine, my business was deteriorating. My businesses were deteriorating because I was no longer in them. And I had to really use my wealth to get my health back. So I'd used my health to build all the wealth. And then I had to use all my wealth to get my health. So coming out of that is a big spiritual journey for me, the healing journey. And what I realized so many things on that deathbed is, first one is just, I realized my whole life was about the chase. Everything was about more accomplishments. It was about more achievements, getting higher, 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 pushing more, 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 being more, more, more. And I think it all at the time resolved, centered around this place that I never felt good enough inside. So I had this need to prove myself. And especially at that top community was mostly male dominated at the time. I just had something to prove. And then coming out of that, I just realized I didn't want to prove anything anymore. So I sold my businesses and I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do next. But I was a decent blogger back in the day. We were all blogging and technology and that. And so I wrote a blog to maybe the 5 people that might have been still following that actually noticed that I disappeared. And that can be pretty humbling and can kind of bust the ego, is that, mine was replaced within 2 seconds. I thought I was so important. And then, it was the next person that took all the stages. But I thought, well, maybe 5 people or 6 people are still listening. So I wrote my first blog after I got sick, after we knew I was going to make it. And I was still in shaky ground, but I knew I wasn't going to die at that point. And so I just sat down to write the blog to say, hey, industry, if anybody's paying attention, this is kind of what happened. And for 30 days, I kept writing. And like you, Eva, I had no desire or intention to write a book. I just didn't, it wasn't even on my plan. And I was the one that had all my goals and everything set up. And 30 days later, I just written a book, like the muse came out of me. And it was this book about money, but it's also about life and why money matters. But life isn't about the money, because my whole life was so much about the money and the success that I missed my life. I was never present. I was always, on to the next thing. I'd never even stopped soon enough to recognize the accomplishment before I was on to the next one. And so that book came out of me as this, and the brand Wealthy came out as the idea that I love you, Sarah, when you said wellness, like financial wellness, is that wealth saved my life, like money wealth, because not only, and how I teach now is like the difference between income and wealth. As a great income earner and business owner, and I had many successful businesses and I had a high income as a result of that. But on the side, I was buying houses. I was a pretty savvy real estate investor, but nobody saw that side of me. That was my private side. But I had to, my businesses started breaking down what I broke down, and I had to now start trading my assets to try to find, save my life. $500,000 later, 12 months. And so it just became very obvious to me that money's not about the chase. Money's about supporting the cost of living a good life and what's meaningful. So I really just radically changed my life. And that book I didn't know what I was going to do next after I sold everything and kind of just left the industry for a while. Just to kind of figure out, get my breath and work on myself. But that just kind of, the muse came out, and I just got this message, like, Christina, you have this big message now. You're really great with money and all these different aspects. And now your job is to teach it. And so I just believe that's my purpose now. My purpose now is to teach money, but money mastery and this wisdom, so that we can all turn our income into wealth and build these really awesome, meaningful, connected, deep lives. And, money's a piece of it, but it's not all about the money either. So that created the new brand, and I've been working on that ever since, and created podcasts and books, and I've written 2 books, and I have, I have a money school. It's called Sovereignty Academy, where I teach you everything you should have learned in school about money, but they didn't offer that class. And again, I'm just passionately motivated for women to own their feminine financial power. We've all got it.
First of all, so powerful. And thank you for sharing that story, because I don't think I didn't know that story about you. And I did see your rise in the Inman community, and was, a cheerleader from, I was a groupie. But at the same time, it's like, we can get caught up in the chase for that money. And I would love to dive into a little bit more on the difference between income and wealth before we get to the next question. Can you speak to that for just a minute?
Yeah, I mean, what keeps us in the churn is that, when it comes to money, there's these two camps. And one camp is, make more money in your business, however we do that. If we're in real estate sales, if we're a brokerage, whatever we do to make our money. And then it's all about scale, building a bigger brokerage, growth. And we can get in that and it will never end. And it actually we get burned out. In my case, it nearly killed me, like literally. So, what we want to do, then the other camp is like this investing camp that we should be investing in doing these things, but they're disconnected. And so wealth is a different game. And so we make money in our business, but we really need to move that money to our household and understand finance household and run that as a business so that we have money that we move then into build our portfolio, which is that future self-passive income. And so I teach the middle piece. I can teach business all day long. I can teach scaling all day long. I've been an entrepreneur and I've built many businesses, so I can teach that. But my sweet spot is what do you do with your money after you make it so that when you have it, now you can give it to Jessica or Eva to really help you manage it, but you can't abdicate it. We can delegate the different pieces of it, but our tendency is to abdicate it because we're afraid or we think we don't know enough. So I teach us everything that we need to know. So when it's time to meet with our planners, we're trying, we're on to this next step. We've got our own knowledge and savvy to be able to do that. So wealth is on the balance sheet, income is on the P&L. And, that's ultimately what we want to do is build out that balance sheet, because that balance sheet is our future self-income. So we can get out of the chase, we can get out of the grind, we can get out of, every single month we have to go back and grind it out to, to hit our numbers.
Yeah, it's the long-term stability,
yes.
Right? I love the lesson of making sure you know enough to depend on people like Jessica and Eva to manage the money, but you're not abdicating it at all by any means. And I love that powerful message. Beautiful. So let's get into what everyone is dying to know listening in today is what's the number one thing each of you would encourage us to do to get started on that road. So Christina, let's start with you.
I say the first thing to do is I call it know your number, and I call it your financial independence, your financial freedom number, what I call your sovereignty number. And it's really asking both this philosophical and practical question of how much money is enough? Because when we don't have enough, the answer is always more. It's like, I don't know, more than I have now. And again, that keeps us in that same loop that at some time will break down. But when we know our number, that financial independence number, then we can start creating a plan, a strategy. We know how much money on a month-to-month or annual basis to start funding that future number, because we need enough money today to support the current cost of our lifestyle, plus that margin of that percentage that we're going to put away to invest to build that portfolio over time. And time is our friend. We don't want to put this off. That's why I encourage women, learn money now. Every day you wait is day that compounding isn't happening, no matter where we put it. If we put it in real estate, if we put it in the market, I'm a big crypto person now, with this desire to reach freedom, sovereignty, independence. And I can tell you, I've reached financial independence. And what that means is the money from my assets fully pays for the cost of my lifestyle. So business and all of that is play. I get to just enjoy it from a different space, but it was intentional, so we all can achieve that. And that number, I think, like what Eva's saying, is different for everyone. And that's a good place to start with the planners, with Jessica and Eva as well, is if you need help determining that number, to start determining it. But we can't get there if we don't know the number and if we don't have a plan. It's a plan strategy that we play over time. And I'll complete by saying that money can be so elusive and scary when we don't know just a few numbers. We know our GCI numbers. We know how many units we need to sell. We know our commission splits. We know, our take home in a certain degree. And we watch those numbers, but we don't know our wealth number. So that's where I say to start is know your wealth number. And then once we're on the trajectory of wealth, then all this financial anxiety and stress just melts off almost immediately. The stress and anxiety melts long before we hit the number, because we know we can hit the number as long as we follow the plan, because it's numbers, it's math. And the math gives us the guide. And it's not scary math. I mean, this is math that we all could do in high school or college. We just weren't taught to think this way. So that's what I say. The best place to start is just know your number.
And is there an easy path or a resource to start calculating that number? Is it okay, look at your mortgage payment for 12 months, or give us a path to knowing that.
Yeah, so a good way to start is to look at the cost of your current lifestyle. And let's just say, I'll use some easy math. Let's say it's $100,000. And let's say, and you could, I mean, depending on what part of your country, it might be easier for Jessica than it is for Eva, being, Columbus versus California, of course. But just know the cost of your desired lifestyle. And that's the cost of, of your good life, what I call your good life number, the enough number. And if you have zero debt, maybe not including your mortgage, but especially if you pay off your mortgage, you can live a good life on something close to $100,000. What keeps us strapped is all the debt payments we have. And every time we increase our debt, we increase the cost of our lifestyle. So when you calculate it, like if I didn't have any debt, like what am I spending money on? And, you might include a mortgage payment in that, but that's it debt wise. Now multiply that by 20. And that's a very easy. So that's $2 million. And that's what's called your wealth number. And what that means in rough financial terms, and Jessica would be a master at this because this is what she does on a day-to-day basis. But that $2 million, if you're pulling out, let's say 5%, now that replaces that $100,000. So now your portfolio pulling out at 5%, minus some inflation and fees and different things, now you're living off the cash flow for your investments. So if you have zero net worth now, because we don't include our house equity, but if we have zero net worth now, and we know we want that $2 million, now we know we have a $2 million net worth gap. And so now we can start working backwards from that and do some compounding calculators or reverse compounding calculators, which is very easy to determine on a month or annual basis how much we'll want to start putting away. And now if we're living off $100,000 a year, we need to add on how much money we make to cover that margin of that gap. So we can sweep that off and start putting that money aside that's going to be going towards creating our wealth number. And that's so every paycheck, ultimately the goal with every paycheck that we pay ourselves is that we're taking money for our future self and paying the rest to our current self to be able to take care of both these selves. Because in the real estate industry, to your point, Sarah, we don't have a 401k. We don't have these retirement vehicles. So we have to create what I called our future trust fund ourselves. Mm-hmm. And we create that trust fund. What are trust fund babies? Meaning they get this check in the mail and, where does that come from? Usually off the interest of the assets that their parents or grandparents put away from them. So we can create our own trust funds. And again, when you know you're on track to do that, it's like, yeah, I own my money. I know where I'm going. I know how much money I need to make. I may not need to scale my business because I don't want that additional stress. Or maybe I need to scale more because I'm still not making enough money to be able to hit these numbers. But again, once you back into some of these reverse engineering, and again, it's very simple. Once you just sit down and do some of this and work with some experts, to do that.
I hope that our listeners, no. I hope that our listeners have a whiteboard nearby or a piece of scratch paper, because that was advice. Like, okay, so now I have my wealth number. It's 20 million, or yeah, it was 2 million.
Okay, so 2 million, 20 million is a lot. So that, yeah.
I was ambitious.
Yeah, you're ambitious. 20 million is good. Yeah.
So now I'm going to put my hands in Eva's court. And Eva, what would you do now? What's the first thing I should be doing?
Everything that Christina pretty much talked about, it's like you taking the words out of my mouth, but yes, absolutely. But one of the things that I like to start with is, I don't know about you women, but sometimes I get really overwhelmed, right? Because we're managing so much. So our plate seems like it's not able to expand, and we have so much going, whether you have your own firm, whether you're running just a book of business, whether you're a solopreneur, whether you're a mom at home running your household, right? Sometimes it becomes really stressful. And one of the things that I would say is keep it simple, because then you can keep it actionable. Because if you overwhelm yourself sometimes with the conversations that we have up here, it doesn't matter that all the books are created, that you can read all the Google stuff, you won't take action. So one of the things that I say is knowledge is power, but it's more powerful when applied. So make sure you apply that power. And one of the things too is, it is safe, ladies, to create a profitable business. I know a lot of business owners, but I also know business owners that are not profitable. They've made a lot of money, but that does not mean that they're a profitable business. And that's—
look at the bottom line.
Yes, and that is a big thing. So for me, in, obviously handling people's funds and doing what I do, I also needed to learn how to run my own business. 2 different hats to wear. Right. And so for that reason, one of the books that I always recommend is reading the book Profit First. If you've already read it, reread it again, because you can always learn from it. But to me, that book really completely changed my business, and understand to create a profit, take care of taxes because they're going to be there, and learn to run your business out of, the, 40%, I'm sorry. And so when you learn to actually run a business with those numbers, you see all the memes that say, $100,000 in the bank, but only $2,000 in your checking account. You only have $2,000. That's it. So the reason why I say that is because sometimes we want to take away from one of our accounts to fund another account, right? And we just kind of mess it all up. And so I always tell women, create different buckets for different purposes, but it is so safe for you to know that it is okay to build a profitable business. And read also Who Moved My Cheese. I can tell you that I needed to shift from an escrow officer standpoint of looking things in one certain direction in one way to opening up my mind to, the different possibilities of creating wealth in a very quick way. Even though it takes time, you can, in real estate, right? Do you buy to flip or do you buy to own? Different things, different methods. And so understanding that it is safe to build a profitable business, keeping it simple, keep it actionable, and also understand, like Christina said, if you're working this hard or this smart, what lifestyle do you want to create? Because everybody's, again, worthy of having it all. What is your all? Define your all. Your all for some might be $100,000. For some of you, it might just be $50,000 because you want to create more time with your family. Whatever that all looks like, it's getting crystal clear and asking yourself, what is important for me? All of the relationships that I currently have, what do I want more of? And then start fueling it from that point. And again, to agree with Christina, is understanding understanding that number, and don't let, if it's $2 million, $3 million, $5 million, $20 million scare you. You're not going to get there alone. You have a powerhouse of women, not just us as panelists, but in resources. Your resources are available. I think what happens is people get analysis paralysis. There's so much information. You're like, where do I start? What do I do? Make a phone call, pick up the email. I was old school. When I needed to get something done, I would send emails, I would call, I would do everything in the books. I would send DM, whatever I need to do to get that person's attention. Because at the end of the day, your wealth, your prosperity is not someone else's responsibility. It is yours. And when you really technically embrace that it is your responsibility and nobody else's, you'll make, for me at least, I made quicker decisions that felt so much easier to make than if I was relying on somebody else to make those decisions for me. So again, that's what I would say. Knowing your numbers, reaching out to your resources, keeping it simple, but keep it actionable. And don't be afraid to ask all the stupid questions. Pardon if I wasn't supposed to say that, but I asked all those questions, and that's how I got to be in the position that I'm in right now, which is a huge blessing, because never did I expect to see that. I had no clarity of what I wanted to create until I started creating it for others, that I said, I'm creating it for everybody else. What do I want to create for myself? Because I think sometimes we do it for others, but we forget to include ourselves in it. So that's what I would say to that.
Wow. The knowledge that you just shared with us, but I do want to hone in on one thing that is so important for people who are running businesses and brokerages. It is knowing your numbers, right? The profit, knowing your expenses, and knowing your net income, right? The bottom line. So thank you, Eva. Jessica, okay. So we know our target number, our wealth number, we know our profit, our net profit. So what else can we do to get started on this path to building wealth?
What I love is that I do this all day long, and these two just got me really energized about it. So to follow that up, I'm excited to kind of hopefully impart something else. I mean, Christina put it perfectly. I think made it sound so fun what I do every day, and so maybe that gave me a little jolt too. So I appreciate that. But honestly, the biggest thing is get started, and that sounds so rudimentary and such like poor advice. Yeah, I know, but how do I get started? And I think that's where you have to make the choice. Do you want to become the expert, or do you want to partner with experts who can help you get there? Because there's a wealth of knowledge that's required to really get you where you need to go. And that's not to dismiss anyone from becoming the expert, but I have a hunch that all of you are way more profitable at running your brokerages and buying and selling real estate, and however your certain segment of the career manifests itself. you be the expert there and find someone who can help guide you along the way. It's finding the right fit. I think that's the other reality here, is whether it's working with a man or a woman, whatever makes you comfortable, find someone, frankly, that you're willing to share your intimate wants and wishes with, because that's really what, I see my job is to help you find what's your why, right? What is your why? Why are you working hard? Because the worst client is the one who's just worried about the number, meaning the number just getting bigger with no purpose, right? To Christina's point, figure out what it is that you want to achieve, and then find someone who can help you really identify how you get there. It's just funny, all the words that both of these women used are ones that I would always use, right? Time is your biggest ally. Einstein called compound interest the eighth wonder of the world, right? Those who understand it earn it, those who don't pay it. And so to make sure that you are really recognizing, your input into building wealth and how important that is to put yourself first. And so I think it's find that base level of understanding. And if you're saying, boy, I don't even know how to get started, find someone like us to guide you, whether it's work with us. I mean, I've got a team of 15 other advisors, right? We make it a real important part of that conversation to link you up with the right person and the right cost construct. I mean, I think we all look at, cost as just an outlay. But at the end of the day, if you need an accountability partner to get you to save $1,000 a month, picking an arbitrary number, but find that person, because I think that's really the most critical thing here. And it can be fun. Like I said, these two got me excited about stuff that I do every day. But just finding that path, that trajectory, and somebody to be your partner in that, I think is huge.
Jessica, that is so profound, because I cannot ignore the parallels of what you just said with what we do in real estate as your trusted advisor, as your realtor, right? We are the ones that are the experts. I'm not a realtor, I have to say that, but this community are the experts in guiding you through a home sale transaction. And why not depend on an expert to guide you through wealth creation and investing when we're not the experts of that? So I loved that. The three of you together, oh my God, we know how to get started now. So what about our community loves stories. So let's switch gears a little bit and start with some success stories or an inspiring client story of how your clients have stepped into working with you and the success that came out of that. Eva, do you want to start?
I definitely want to start with this one, and it hits home probably for a lot of us since we experienced a pandemic, right? And we're in this pandemic. So there's so many stories, but this one tends to stand out the most. I created the financial boot camp where we go down to every single number that gets deposited and any outgoing number that goes out there. Most of the time, most women will be like, there's no way I spent that much. Yes. And sometimes that could be done in your business too, not just personally, right? You're like, Amazon. What? Oh my goodness, right? And so I created this course with the intention of helping you see that sometimes we lie to ourselves, right? And I had this woman who took the financial boot camp. She brought a friend along because she didn't want to do it alone. And she brought a friend along. And when she brought, actually, it was her cousin. She brought her cousin along. Her cousin was like, oh, I don't think I want to share my personal numbers because sometimes we're embarrassed. And in the space, I said, let's go ahead and allow all of us to just create a safe space for us to allow us to, whatever comes up, let it come up. There's a reason why it's coming up, and you got to pay attention to what's coming up. And so she did this. She became one of my best students, asked all the questions. She booked a follow-up appointment, came into my office, brought her parents in because her parents impacted her wealth. She was taking care of her parents. So since she was taking care of her parents, right, we're in that, some of us may be in that generation where we're taking care of our parents, but you're also taking care of your family. And then who takes care of you, right? And so she was in that situation. Her parents live with her. Well, we got her taken care of for her personally and her personal financial journey. And then I made a comment after asking all these questions. I said, your biggest risk is not that you're not saving or your debt, because we can take care of that. Your biggest risk is if your parents pass, who's going to be financially responsible for them? And she's like, I never thought about that. I said, okay, so let's take a look at it. Let's role play this. And as we did, she goes, I would be responsible for this. Mind you, she has 3 kids. And after we sat down, we were able to insure her father and her mother. And, you know, a year and a month later, he passes from COVID. And he passed. The day that he passed, she text messaged me and said, my father passed. Immediately, I went into my father had actually passed the month before. And so I was reliving my father. I forgot he was my client. And he had actually bought a life insurance policy with me because, again, we were talking about assessing the risk. And immediately I fell into this deep state of gratitude. And I just said, thank you, God, for allowing me to be in their presence with what I create so that this family can no longer financially suffer. And she thanked me 10 times fold. As I mentioned to all of you, whatever that looks like for you, in this case, it was an insurance policy that her family needed, right? On top of her creating her, her IRAs and maxing out her IRAs and so forth. But her biggest risk was this: I was going to change her lifestyle. So I ask all of you today, ask yourself, what's my biggest risk? What would really transform my business? For Christina, it was her health. I always say health is wealth, right? And that's top priority. And so with my client, I said, I want this to give you peace of mind because that's going to continue to create health for us. And it did. And so I invite all of you to just really ask yourself, what's my biggest risk? And who do I need to speak to so that that risk can minimize? In that case, for my client, I was able to see that that was her biggest risk, not so much in creating her 403B. Actually, she had a 403B and making sure that she was going to be financially okay, but that also that her parents, because they relied on her so much, wasn't going to be such a financial, it's not a burden, but a financial responsibility she was going to need to take on when she didn't need to have to, when she could make a monthly payment. And literally she, up to this day, is so grateful. And I'm grateful that I stepped out of my comfort zone and went there in that conversation. So a lot of you who, have your broker shops, and for those that you're really teaching your clients, right? Continue to be a bigger asset to them because you don't know the amount of lives you guys are actually impacting right now. So if we want to see the shift in just wealth itself, I highly encourage that you start thinking at a bigger scale. Bigger not mean so much take on more, but really assessing, where do I need to go next so that I can be able to continue to create peace of mind? And this client, like I said, was forever grateful. Now she tells everybody about me and the boot camp and everything. And again,
loyalty and future business.
And because I did what was right for her family first, right? The commission, the money came second. It's the mission before the commission. You guys have probably heard that a million times. Literally, the money follows once your intention is clear of helping many. It just follows. It's just a rule.
I mean, it's a testament to the power of you listening to that client and then planning for that client. And I mean, that's what we do in the real estate profession as well. And so it's the power of the plan that you just shared.
What they're not saying, because a lot of the times we listen to what they're saying, but we're not listening to what they're not saying. That's why you got to go deep in asking those financial questions, because probably somebody else hasn't asked.
That's intuitive, and that's why they should go to you as the financial expert, right? You know the questions to ask. Very, very powerful. Jessica, what about you?
Sorry about that. We ask the uncomfortable questions in order to be able to help benefit whatever you're creating.
100%. No, I love that. Thank you. How about you, Jessica?
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. I promise I'll tell a story in 2 seconds, but I have to expand a little bit on something that Eva said, because she used the word embarrassed, and it leads me back to thinking about the encouragement to just get started. Part of my job is to help figure out where you are on the journey and when it makes sense for someone to pay me to help them, right? I am more than happy. I mean, we always say we meet with clients on an initial basis with no cost for a reason, because part of my assessment is, what do you need at this stage? And my cost can't be a deterrent to your success, right? So I often tell people, especially young people, you'll graduate. I will help you do the basics to graduate to the point that it makes sense to pay me for my advice. But don't let an embarrassment of I have some credit card debt or things like that get in the way of getting started. So I just love that you kind of started there. My story is maybe a little bit shorter, but a fun one in the real estate world to me. So I'm going to call it inherited a client. We had an advisor here who's sort of on the retirement track. And so she's been very intentionally transitioning some of her clients to advisors who are going to continue to carry on a little bit longer. And so one of them is a really strong realtor in the area, Keller Williams agent, and she's got a great team. She has a team of people, which I know sometimes that's hard to build a team in this space, but she very successfully built a team and ran it for a number of years and was the owner. And in the past 2 to 3 years that we've been working together, she actually transitioned the ownership of that team to the other members. And as I think many of you know, once you ride the real estate train, you don't get off. I have a lot of clients. I have a woman, she's 85, and she's still like a stalwart in town. And so I recognized early that she was not going to be able to just cut it cold turkey, but to help her sort of transition that phase where now she can go to Hawaii for a month in February. She can rely on other people to take that torch and carry it along. And the transition was seamless because she was so thoughtful about it. And so those are the kind of things that get me excited too, right? It's not just the get you there, but get you through it, I guess, is part of that. So that's kind of my fun stories. If you do it right and you're thoughtful about where you want to end up, you can really design that retirement plan however you want without necessarily having to stop going. An object in motion stays in motion. So retirement's we've really Americanized the crap out of it, saying that I need to be this age and then I stop working completely. Like all of a sudden you just want to be Homer Simpson and sit on a couch. I don't believe in that wholly. We still need purpose. And so that's one of my most fun things, is just what's the next chapter.
I love I love the way you look at it. You're a philosopher and an economist, but also a financial advisor. So that was great. And tying it back to what you said about being embarrassed. And I think this community is so beautiful in that there's less ego, right? I think if you let some of that go, it just opens you up to opportunity. And so I just want to make sure we put a pin in that one. Christina, what about you? Is there a story you want to share?
Oh, I probably have a million stories. I do want to echo a few things, especially when we're in the wealth building game, sometimes what gets missed is what Eva's referred to as protection. We need to protect what we're building. And so it's such an important piece of the puzzle to start asking these types of questions. And again, when we think retirement's this far off thing, we're not asking these questions now. And the sooner that we start this whole thing, the better off we're going to be on all accounts. And another one of my favorite quotes is, when's the best time to plant a tree? 20 years ago. When's the second best time to plant a tree? Today. So start planting the tree today. And to protect it, if I would have had disability insurance when I got sick, for example, I wouldn't have bled through, $500,000 cash. And I didn't have that. I was naive to it. And so it's when we, for example, just to echo what Eva says, in real estate commissions, if we're out and we are fully relied on our body to show up to work to make our money, we are our number one asset. We're building these other assets and portfolios so we don't have to be the number one asset, but to protect ourselves is really important. So looking at things like disability insurance and other life insurance and things is crucial to the wealth building conversation and, getting to place of legacy and other pieces once we get to that stage. So I just want to echo the importance of that. And, the work that I do is it's mostly the confidence piece. And so the story I'll share with one of my favorite clients, because she's done all of the work and just has been with me for years. But a lot of the people I work with are high income earners. And so I just get them turned around on a trajectory. But Karen worked for the Austin Parks and Wildlife, and she made the most amount of money she made was $55,000. Single mom with a with a child who had autism and, just a difficult thing, and carried this big old camera on her back all the time when the camera was really big, hard worker. And when she first came to me, I met her actually, our kids went to Montessori school together. And then when I got into this side of the business, she came to me and she said, I need your help. And she was in a lot of debt, barely making it. And, just trying to pay for school and these different things is, $55,000 doesn't go a long way necessarily, but she just learned everything. And slowly but surely, over 5 years, she paid off all of her debt, started Airbnb in her house, bought a second little condo to Airbnb, and then got another little place to Airbnb and partnered on this third one. Like, she learned to partner, so because she didn't have the cash to come up with it all by herself. And now she is fully, her Airbnbs and how she's doing things, she's financially independent now, because all she had to do is replace that $55,000 a year. And to Jessica's point, she doesn't want to retire. She spent however many years ago to retire with the Texas Parks and Wildlife. But she's like, I'm not retiring, but now it's play money. It's like free bonus money, and now she's doing social media for the Texan Part of Life and all these random things. And the thing is, she was so defeated and scared and had no confidence, thought there was no way out, and just desperate. And now you talk to her, she could teach my classes, So it's just fun to see what's possible when we educate ourselves, when we take the time and do the work. But we have to do the work. Like, nobody, I think Eva said it, nobody can do it for us. And even though it's intimidating or it's a pain in the ass, or, we don't have time for it, is there anything more important than getting good with our money, being healthy and getting good with our money? And so I'm just so happy that you guys have opened up to have this type of conversation, hopefully to really inspire all of us to learn. And no matter where we start, I'm still learning. Eva's still learning. Jessica's still learning. Like, we're in the learning game all the time. I'm still learning. I'm still reading books. So we all start with the beginner somewhere. If we start juggling, we're going to drop all the balls, but you can learn to juggle by watching YouTube videos, but you're going to feel like an idiot when you first start dropping these things all over, right? So it's just getting comfortable being a beginner and then starting somewhere, but the only way to get started on anything, we can say we want to lose weight, but we'll never really lose weight until we make a commitment. Like, I am damn tired of this weight. I don't like how I look. I don't like how I feel. I'm just done. I'm done. And today's the day I'm going to make the change. Today's the day I'm going to get healthy. And this is about a healthy lifestyle. I'm going to do the work. I'm going to learn. I'm going to get a coach. I'm going to do whatever I need to do. But today's the day that I'm putting the stake in the ground, and I commit to this. So same thing with the money. It's just, today's the day that I'm going to get good with this, and I'm putting a stake in the ground, and I'm going to change my life and turn this around. And everybody can do it. All of us can do it. It's not hard, despite what a lot of the industry and conventional wisdom out there that makes it think it's hard. It's not hard. With some little help, and just the commitment, we all can do it. Believe me, it's possible for every one of us.
Preach it, Christina. Oh my gosh. Okay, so a couple of things. It's not retirement, it's a vacation lifestyle is what I'm hearing from the chat. And I did have a question, and it does kind of tie back to what you're saying, Christina, is that just get started. So there's a question that came in that says, I have my wealth number of what I want, but I'm just starting to build 2 businesses with 0 income. And so what would you recommend for me? Not me, but Yolanda. Who wants to go?
Eva, did you want to go?
Definitely. I'm definitely thinking, because my brain just goes like, right? So I definitely, like I said, 2 businesses at the same time. And so I encourage you to look at why starting the 2 businesses at the same time, first and foremost, right? Sometimes we get to really get focused on that one to be able to continue to bring in that income that can potentially fuel that second business, right? And so that's one of the things that I would take a look at just personally. I currently own 3 businesses, and Eva Macias and Associates was able to fund the other 2 businesses. And so for me, that's how I was able to create it. So I needed to get really laser focused in that one business to create that income, to be able to then be able to funnel that to the other businesses that and mind you, one of the things is they're completely separate businesses, nothing to do with Eva Macias and Associates, but I'm passionate about both of them. I love what they're going to create for others and for myself. And so I would say in this case, really get focused on building that one so that that one can continue to help you build the other one. Because the sooner you get focused in that first and the sooner it starts, the sooner you can then, like I said, focus on that second business. That's something
it's more sequential, build one.
And that's what I did. I did that with my business. I really focused on Eva Macias and Associates first because that was what I was passionate about. And that's what I honestly was bringing in the income. That was bringing in the income. And so with that, I then, started focusing on making sure to put, profit money, tax money, running my business on, less, creating a lifestyle that was going to be able to, a lifestyle that I wasn't going to be living in luxury immediately, that I was going to just be able to live comfortable to be able to then later on say, like Christina said, I can take a vacation and spend time with my daughter, whatever that looks like. So I would say really get focused on that one business.
Awesome. Awesome. Anything else from Jessica or Christina?
Okay, Jessica, thanks. That's what I love about women. We don't want to just like jump in there. It's like, no, you go. I want to support you, girlfriend. Exactly. Yeah, I mean, oh my God, Eva, what you said is so important. Like, choose one. There is the average millionaire has six streams of income. So it is, but it's to remember it's over time. Start with one stream, kick ass at it, get good, build that profit, understand the business inside and out. Make sure that from that business profitability, it funds the cost of your lifestyle. But yeah, it's impossible. Business is effing hard, like I mean, to do more than one startup is the hardest thing ever. Like, my God, like I'm promising myself, never do another startup, never do another startup, never do another startup. So yeah, that's, I think, wow, what great advice, Eva. And then it's to understand too, probably the focus and money in this case is really to build the business and get that income stream up and just make that the focus of your money attention at the moment. Now, with that said, we all still have living expenses. And so the way I teach is that there are these real three categories of money. And it's to really understand all three distinctly and separately, and then understand how to integrate them and how they flow together. And when you can flow these three together and you manage the whole system, like, as a lifestyle, this is where the money starts to grow. And so I'll just, share a few different numbers, but just to give some context. So if we have that $2 million gap number, for example, and you can do this in a compounding calculator, it's not exact math, but I want to share some of these numbers just to, oh, there you go. Thank you. So Jessica can keep my math, she's got the reverse type, the HP calculator, that you have to think backwards to use that darn thing. Anyway, that's for smart people. I'm not that smart. So, anyway, so let's say that our gap is $2 million. If we put some money into a reverse calculator, it's roughly that we'd need to save $2,600 a month for 20 years to fund that $2 million. So what that means is every single month for 20 years, what is that, 240 months or something, you never miss a payment. But so let's pretend you do that. So you're sweeping, you're investing, you're saying you're putting it in the market somewhere and you don't miss a payment for 20 years. Now you have $2 million. Now you've been putting money away for 20 years. If you multiply that 240 times the 2,600 roughly, that only equals about $672,000. So, but you're like, but you said 2 million, Christina. You mean 672,000? So what that means is your hard work, not only to create the $2,600 a month above and beyond, your own lifestyle expenses month to month, year to year. Not only did the hard work to create that, but the hard work to save that, it only amounted to $672,000 of hard work. Your body worked that hard to create that 672 over 20 years. But that's worth $2 million. That means your money created 1.3 million and your money just outperformed your best work, working your ass off in this industry for 20 years, 2 to 1. So that's why we use time in compounding to let the compounding, our money works 365, 24/7. We can't, it doesn't take vacations. And that's the power of compounding. So we don't understand compounding. Like Jessica said, it's the eighth wonder of the world. That's what keeps us to paycheck for the 20 or 30 years of our career. And we don't want to do it. So that's why we want to start now. So if we have 20 years and that's the most we can do, the more money we make, we can double it or triple that. And we can speed up how much time that we do that. But anybody can really start saving to hit their 1 million or 2 million or whatever the number is. So I just want to say that to give some context for numbers of the importance of this and why we want to start. The three different categories of money that we want to focus on, and you start, is the first category of money. And I love, again, what Eva said, is our business and the finances in our business. And like Eva said, so many, I can't tell you how many, especially in real estate, what do we get? We get all the plaques and the awards and the stages for GCI, top line number. And so, man, I made $1 million GCI, but if the rewards or the awards were built on profit, it'd be a whole different group of people on the stage, because a lot of people are spending $1 million to make $1 million, which means their profit is relatively zero. So that's not a successful business. We can all probably spend $1 million to make $1 million. So the first thing is to get good with our numbers. And I'm a big follower and fan of Mike's work. He's been on my podcast. That's a great podcast to listen to. I don't remember what episode it is, but I interviewed Mike. He and I have a very similar philosophy. I teach the same philosophy and methodology in household finance, actually, but great podcast to listen to. But that's to focus on profit. So if you're starting your new business, the first question you want to ask yourself is, how profitable do I want this business to be? Is it $50,000 profit a year, $100,000, $250,000? And what business is it? And following some other models and others that are doing it, that then you have to know, what top line money do I need to generate based on my expenses? So if it's $100,000 and it's a 30% profit margin, then I need $1 million, whatever the number is, but I need to have that top line. So I need a $500,000 business based on that profit margin in order to get that $100,000 profit. So that's it. It's about creating that $100,000, that first $100,000 of profit. Start there. One business. It's not easy, but it's not hard either. And it just takes work and figuring out, but there's models and coaches and people to help us do that. Now, what do we do with that $100,000? Now, the second piece is the next set category of money we want to get good at. And that's what's called profit. And when we move profit to our household, now it's called household income. So the name changes. In income, we move into our household, and now we need to divvy that up and bucket it just like we do in our business. And that 2,600 is going to come off the top, and then we get to live and spend everything, after taxes. After that, that's another little thing. We can't spend any money except money after taxes. And if we say we made 100, we actually probably made 77 or whatever the tax rate is. In California, you made a lot less. But that's why we want to even set up an S Corp, an LLC/S Corp, because the tax rate's a lot lower. So that's another money mantra, is you need to separate your personal finance from your business finance. But now we need to get good at household finance to make sure we're managing all of our money in a way and we know where every dollar is going. And, I do that in my programs. Eva teaches in that. And just like that, you have this holy shit moment of like, oh, I spent that much. What? It doesn't feel like I spent that much money. Where's it all going? But that's why we want to get really good at household finance, because it's in our household that we build wealth. We make sure we have liquidity and enough cash in our emergency fund and our dreams fund and some of these other funds while we take money off the top. And then the third bucket is our investment bucket and our category. And that's where we start doing that. Where do we put that $2,600 a month and who's going to help me place it and working back? So it's just once we get all three of these systems working together and we're in control of our finance and we're completely empowered to do it, we have our financial team around us. I have a really nice portfolio and I'm a pretty savvy investor, but make no mistake, I have lots of help to help me make decisions. I have my Jessica Evas and different pieces of my life to always help me and to make sure, that I'm making the smart decisions and is my portfolio, is it diversified enough? Do we need to switch anything around? And so you always have your team, but I'm in control. Like this, this is my money. And no matter the best advisors in the world, they're never going to care about your money or love your money as much as you do. So that's
wow.
my piece of advice there.
Wow. So I am going to say we have a lot of more questions, but we are out of time. And I'd love to kind of wind down this energizing. I love that, Jessica, energizing conversation. I cannot wait to listen to it again and get my whiteboard out and start sketching out my numbers. But any final words of wisdom you'd like to share with the Woman Up community?
Real quick before we do that, I've had a couple questions.
Oh,
Christina, what's the last name of Mike? You said watch the Mike podcast.
Hold on. Mike McCallowitz.
Okay, all right. We'll drop that into we'll drop that in. There's just more than one Mike on your podcast, so we want to make sure to give the right Mike the okay.
Have it first.
Got it.
Eva was not Michael.
McCallowitz. I always forget how to say his last name, right?
Eva was trying to get in there. Thank you. All right. Thank you for that, for clarifying.
There we go.
Awesome. Okay, let's start with you, Jessica, and let's close out with some final words of wisdom, advice, financial advice for the community.
Boy, we could all go in so many directions with this, I think. But, I think that the main thing besides the get started is just be engaged to a certain level, right? Because, I say the most challenging client I have is the one who just wants to hand over the steering wheel to me, which I appreciate the trust. I do. There's no denying that. But I always say there's this base layer that I have to make sure that I'm comfortable you understand before you make a decision. Yeah. Right. So it's finding, I think, that level of engagement and finding someone who's going to require that of you. I won't deny it. This industry has had its bad stains, right? And so you've got to be careful that you're knowledgeable to enough of a degree that you're making confident decisions. That's what I want you to be educated enough that you're confident making decisions, not just a passenger in this process. And both these fine women have said similar things, I think, along the way, is just make sure you know things. And that doesn't mean be the expert, right? But it's have a sense of the directionality you want to go. And really, again, I said it earlier, but just find that why, find that purpose for what you're really trying to achieve, because just growing money is joyless. I know everyone's heard that money doesn't buy happiness. I've seen it too many times, and it's such a truth. It buys security, and it buys a lot of fun. And so as long as we get the security piece covered first, boy, is it fun. And fun doesn't just have to be buying things or having experiences, but leaving legacies, right? And sharing that wealth with family, with charity, with, there's just so many directions you can go with this. But it's just, I think it's just build that base layer of understanding, find someone, a trusted partner in that with you. That's probably the thing I'd leave you with.
Powerful, powerful. How about you, Christina? Quick, last, anything that wasn't covered you want to make sure?
I think it's just a fall for money. If we neglect or avoid it, I just want to encourage you to embrace it, to want to love it, to get good with it, and just lean into it.
Awesome. And Eva?
I would say be consistent, not only to get started, but be consistent and be open to new ways of making money. So I know we're in real estate, right? We talk about real estate, but be open to stocks and ETFs and mutual funds and index funds, because our money can grow a lot faster that way. So again, get started, be consistent, and be open.
And look up compound interest, right?
I love it. I love it. So much amazing advice. Ladies, I had a blast having individual conversations with you, and I had no idea how incredibly lovely the three of you would flow together. I feel like a new mom. Like everyone's getting together and having fun on the playground together. The conversation was beautiful. There's a lot of comments in the chat, so we'll make sure to get those to you. I do have that Ava is offering a free gift on her website, so we'll make sure to get that link to everybody. Christina has her 4 simple steps to building wealth download on fallingformoney.com. We'll make sure to get that in there, as well as a link to the podcast. And then Jessica has a Facebook page for us all to connect with her as well. So is there any other place you want people to connect with you, or are those solid, ladies?
Anyone can email me, call me. I'm an open. The door is open. The phone is open. The computer's open.
Right. Well, we'll drop that into the comments. We'll make sure to get it in the recap blog post. But thank you so much, ladies. Sarah, thank you for your magnificent moderation. It was wonderful to be in the green room watching and taking a bunch of notes. Make sure, everyone, if you are watching the replay, you didn't lose your chance to ask questions. You can still message us. You can still leave comments on the blog or on Facebook, and we will make sure to get these amazing experts your questions so that they can get connected with you. Until we see you next week, have a great weekend, everyone. Thank you again so much for joining us. And ladies, again, thank you so much for investing in our community. We truly appreciate it. We'll see you all next time. Bye.